Everything we know, from people and ants to stars and galaxies to quarks and atoms, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer inside an even bigger universe. Ancient philosophers said that the universe is a dream that we're waiting to wake up from. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. All cultural items, from the dreams of our rodent-like ancestors, to books, to television shows, are merely permutations of the reality we think we live in. Today's age of computers and video games places simulations at the center of our cultural consciousness. A select group of us perform simulations for fun and profit, and we call them games, role-playing and otherwise. We live to run simulations. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulations.
Hello once again, welcome to the Simulationist podcast. Today is the 16th of March that we're recording this. You, of course, are listening to it tomorrow or whenever you do listen to it. So welcome. Hope you have fun with us in the next 90 minutes or so. Let me see. This is iteration 80, so there are 79 other episodes before this one that you can check out if you do enjoy it, or if you just need something to go up to play in the background.
But no worries, it's not like we hid any of them. You don't have to hunt down throughout the internet and find out where the other 79 iterations are.
Oh,
they're just behind this one.
Yeah, just look behind this one. In whatever feed you're having it. You probably find it on iTunes. They should all be listed together in one spot.
Maybe they're going through, searching around the random parts of YouTube.
Yeah, well, they're all up on YouTube too. They should all be in order too. So yeah, I've been very organized. Well, my name is Josh Trelevin. With me, as always, I have a co-host,
Ryan Kirkby.
Ryan Kirkby is with me. Hey, how's it going, Ryan?
It's not bad. It's been an interesting week, I think, this last week. I got two news stories I think bear relevance to fiction.
Okay. Sort of carrying on from the sort of ongoing news stories, yeah?
Well, yeah, they're progressing, and they're definitely not done news stories. I can say that with guarantee.
These are not new news, probably, if you're listening. These are the top stories right now, so you've probably heard these in other sources, but we're going to give our take.
Well, here's the thing, the big one for me this week was the whole changes of what's going on with the Malaysia flights, airplane that went missing.
Yeah, that airplane that went missing and nobody knows where it was. And we did mention it last week, so it's been at least a week.
But here's the thing, is when we mentioned it last week, I said, they found some wreckage on the sea floor.
Yeah, it turns out
that's not from that plane.
Different plane. Where did that wreckage come from?
Yeah, that's another question. No one's asking that anymore. They're focused on some other stuff. The oil slicks that they found that were washing up, that should be for a plane of that size. No, not for that plane, because the government says no, they're going west. They might be going towards India. That's the last we saw of them. Mm-hmm. And so the story has changed, and it seems to keep changing daily. And this is what brings me to the whole fiction point, because it reminds me of some of the worst parts of the series Lost, which involved a crashed plane, which is purely coincidental, I assure you, in this case.
All right.
So in that case, with Lost, what apparently happened was J.J. Abrams had this wonderful idea about what the island was really like, and people discovered it, and they guessed out the secret, and they guessed everything right, and so he changed it.
Oh, okay.
So, okay, well, if everyone knows exactly what's going on, it's not going to be as good a mystery thriller. So he changes up, okay, all the evidence can point this way, so we'll go with that story. And then it happens again. Everyone guesses the new outcome correctly. So he changes it again. And this time people start getting angry at him because he's changing things. And it's like they're able to tell he's changing things. It's like, oh, no, it wasn't that. You just thought it was. It was really this behind door number 2, and then they guess what's behind door number 2, and he says, I mean door number 3. And so, people are getting pretty angry about this missing flight as to what's going on, what's rumor and what's true. And this is something I think, if you're writing a story, a mystery thing, don't keep changing it. If you have, this is what your plan was ultimately, and the people wind up guessing halfway through your trilogy of books you've got, stick to it. Find some way to make it exciting again, but don't change your story.
Well, no, I wouldn't say never change it, especially if
be
you're
very
writing.
Wary about changing it, because people get angry when they realize, no, you keep changing it just because we keep guessing it.
Yeah, you just have to be careful because people pay attention to things like evidence and clues and hints. So if you drop clues and hints and then later on you say, well, I don't know,
that was just rumors.
Say it was invalid or something like that.
It's okay to do once or twice, sort of thing, because it gets people on their toes. But if they can't put any weight to any of the sources of information that they're getting, and so it means nothing has any proper validity, and so it's like, well, okay, yeah, it doesn't matter what you tell me now. It's not like I'm going to believe it.
Yeah, and well, the thing is, if early on, if you drop a certain hint and you put it deliberately in a narrative, it's got either one of two purposes. It leads to the actual resolution, or it's a red herring that sort of diverts you for a little while.
Or I suppose you could make the argument that the red herring place where it's false should allow you a proper insight into the nature of the person telling the story, and from that you can deduce from their lives what really happened.
Actually, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so it's all part of the evidence that should
lead you to this ultimate grand conclusion. It shouldn't just be, like, oh, here's something, no, it's not true, and here's something, no, it's not true. Switching up the story and trying to change things, it didn't work well for just so many mysteries in the past.
Yeah, because that's what we do as readers. We are very detective-minded because we read often like we're connoisseurs of detective stories or just stories.
Especially if they're going for a detective mystery book, then they're going to try and figure out a way.
Yeah.
No one watches, Murder, She Wrote because they want to be, like, oh, I guess that's true. I was just watching passively. No, the mystery is one where you really have a much greater proportion of active participants who are studying and deducing as the story progresses.
Although I wonder if there's space in the development world, like in the storytelling world, for the sort of popcorn mystery where it literally is like, I guess you have to be upfront with the readers. Just say, we are so focused on the drama and the interaction between the characters that the mystery is always going to be just a framing device. It's never going to be actually a mystery. We always want you to focus on the characters.
Well, if you're going to allow me to maybe drop the level of drama and all that interplay in there, you could qualify the Encyclopedia Brown mysteries for the kids' books.
Mm-hmm.
They were simple things, about 5 minutes a chapter to read through, then you go to the back of the book and find the solution as to who done it.
Hey.
There you go. And mind you, they're not incredibly difficult mysteries. They're meant for kids. They're not supposed to be incredibly difficult mysteries.
Right.
There's supposed to be some clues that you pick up on so that you're more aware.
So probably
about Encyclopedia Brown learning about the whole thing and how he would uncover it.
In that case, what you should go ahead and do is just go ahead and reveal. Like, don't even hide something from the viewer.
Here's the facts. And then if they can figure it out, they flip to the back. Yes, Encyclopedia Brown guessed the same thing I did. I am as smart as him.
Because, you want to be able to divert attention where you want it, because if you want to divert attention to the mystery, then you're going to have to work on that mystery. But if you want to divert attention to the characters, then you can simply reveal the mystery and say, hey, don't worry about it. This happened, and you're allowed to know because we're giving you the omniscience or whatever.
I should also say, sometimes Sally Brown, his cohort and other sleuth, does solve the crimes too, so.
Yeah, okay.
I shouldn't say it's always him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't necessarily need to have so many twists and turns. And I think, writing, go out there and write an Encyclopedia Brown 5-minute mystery is at least as good a practice as anything else out there.
Yeah, and the thing about that challenge is the challenge of writing the mystery isn't that hard. It's not like it has to be some elaborate plot. It just has to be, something went missing, who took it, or something happened, who did it. It doesn't have to be involved or a plot or anything.
It's not that far off of the Scooby-Doo mysteries. It's like you have 3 people. All you have to do is find a way to make sure 2 of them couldn't have done it, sort of thing, and then bam. How did they do it? And then you can kind of work it back that way.
Yep, you can use your logical powers of elimination. That's a very powerful tool.
Well, I guess it's kind of a meta-narrative story. Conceivably, if Encyclopedia Brown starts the thing and there's 3 people in there who are suspects, it could have been anyone else who's not in the story, but from a meta-narrative that doesn't make for good writing, because, it could have been anyone else out there, but it's not going to be. It's always going to be one of the 3 people shown earlier on in the chapter.
Yeah, and I guess that's just a fundamental. I mean, you can play like if you sort of know that going in, you can sort of play with that and say, well, here's a person, introduce a new character towards the end, be like, oh, maybe they did it, and that could be another red herring, or that could be, you could do something with that.
Well, I do recall them actually doing that in one episode of the What's New Scooby-Doo TV series.
Oh yeah.
5-6 years ago now, where they're guessing, oh, it had to be person A. No, it had to be person B. No, it must have been person C. Turns out it's none of the above. It's someone they had never encountered before in their half hour of adventures. And Velma calls, like a mulligan on that. It's like, oh, they weren't even presented as an option, sort of thing. The one time she was stumped was the time she never met the person who was the guilty party.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were making fun of it in that case. But otherwise, it's the conceit of the genre that I believe everyone at least is willing to work with. Yep. It could have been person D, but no, it's A, B, or C because they were presented earlier on in the chapter.
So this plane does not conform to storytelling conventions and the do's and don'ts.
I suppose it shouldn't because it's real life.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be constrained. But it is causing a lot of people to be frustrated because they're acting as though it were a story that they would be seeing on, say, House. What's the medical mystery? What's going on here? Why are the symptoms still persisting when the medicine's being given?
Yeah.
Well, it's only the second time they give the medicine. It's not until they give the medicine the third time that's the right one and they cure the person at death's door. So people are acting as though it was a story when it's real life. And they're getting frustrated. The family of the people that
understandably,
went missing should be frustrated because, they're not getting anything, and all they're hearing is like rumor and hearsay. But, looking at it from the perspective of the story, because that's how almost, a vast majority of the people are perceiving it, as though it were a mystery, what happened sort of story, is not a good process because this is real life and so it's not following along.
Yeah.
And honestly, there is a lot of misinformation and half information going about as to what it could be, where it couldn't be. And so you have these people that are looking online because they took like the photographs, and all that. Okay, we have the satellite images here. Can anyone see anything? We're going to crowdsource this out. They're looking on the wrong side of the landmass. Apparently the plane went over westward towards India.
Okay, well, I guess, you basically have to find the last place that you saw that for sure the plane was. Or even then, I guess the data could be wrong or faulty. But basically, you start from there, and how many hours could it have traveled from there? And that's actually, considering how fast a plane travels, that's a pretty large, hundreds of square miles.
Well, that's the thing is it was going apparently over towards the Indian Ocean. There's a lot of ocean that way. So if they kept on the direction they were going, they would have crashed, yes. But who knows at this point? Because it's not a story. You can't expect the simple narrative. So just be aware of the conceits of the whole thing. Don't change up because somebody guessed it right. And just think about exactly like whether or not it truly is a story, and do you want to present it as a story or something that seems a lot more like real life? Because sometimes the stuff in real life can get rather annoying when you don't get the sudden answer and the time keeps dragging on.
Yeah, well, there's not much that can be done. Of course, the other annoying thing is just that there are government officials of multiple governments who are maybe not
giving out all the information in a timely fashion.
Yeah, they're just maybe they're underfunded or undertrained or whatever. So
under-empathetic. They just don't
care.
Sometimes,
sometimes, and sometimes it's just like which. You don't know which department is supposed to handle sort of, if a plane goes down, is it search and rescue and which country and all this stuff.
So. It was international waters, could be anybody sort of thing. But not every department knows what the other departments are actually doing or capable of, and that's causing some issues too.
Yeah, especially when you talk, multiple different governments with various levels of, like, some are better than others and some have...
Mind you, that's the government for you, and even it isn't aware of what it's doing all the time.
Yeah, even in first world countries, and, even in the West, governments will often have
wait, that department can do that? They've been tracking with radar how long? Why? Well, no wonder their budget was so high. I've been wondering that for years now. But
so yeah, that's the flight, the Malaysian flight, and you know, I don't know. Can you hold out for a happy ending? I guess.
Well,
I don't know.
I mean, well, that's the thing is, fingers crossed. At this point, the happy ending would be sold into slavery, sort of thing. The plane is now. Didn't crash, but it touched down somewhere on an unregulated or uncharted landing strip. That's a happy ending.
Yeah, at least the people would be okay.
Yeah,
I don't know.
as people are in human slavery conditions.
Yeah.
But that's weird when that's your happy ending, but that's as good as it can be.
Well, so yeah, no, it points to that plane being like probably crashed, and so that's very.
But why did it turn
bad.
off the transponder? Those are the questions that might not even ever get properly answered. Why did the transponder get turned off? Why did they change course? What the heck was going on there?
Well, yeah, and they, of course, everybody whispers about terrorism, and they say, well, there's this and that evidence that might point to somebody hijacking it.
But
yeah,
I mean, the passports that were bought genuinely seem that the people were just trying to find a better life for themselves in another nation as illegal immigrants.
That is true. And it might not even be like that. That might be another red herring. That might, there's 2 false passports. Ooh, who could that be? Oh, it turns out they were just nobody, or they might be involved. You never know.
Well, the thing is they're looking at the pilots now. It's like, could they have been doing it, and then just never tell the passengers until they're crashing? Mm-hmm. And then it's like, well, they have no evidence of ties to anything like that themselves, and they did seem to be decent people, civic-minded, part of the community sort of thing. So, I mean, they seem to be more upstanding citizens than you or I, Josh. They go out and they participate in all sorts of things, apparently, and they're very big family people.
Yeah, I don't participate in that much stuff, so...
Well, you participate in this stuff, but I'm a family guy. Between the two of us, we might equivocate to one of those pilots.
Okay.
But, for them to be accused of terrorist ties, I mean, what does that say about you or I? Are we really all that much better off if we're going to start accusing them? They might have had some...
Wait, well, okay, I'm not accusing the pilots.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, is that some people are saying, okay, well, what about the pilots? Could it have been them who did it the entire time? And it's like, well, no, there's no evidence of that. There's no evidence, any reason that should have gone other than a perfectly ordinary flight.
Yeah.
And that's causing a lot of anger, too. It's like, you're not giving us enough clues. Come on, I need something to go with. It's just all red herrings here.
Yeah.
So... yeah, that's the one news story.
Okay.
The other one was as of today, the vote came in over in Crimea.
Oh yeah, another downer, I guess. I don't know.
Well,
it depends on
I don't know
who you
how
are.
to qualify it, honestly, because I mean, the votes came back from the referendum. 95% of the people said they want to join Russia.
According to the referendum.
According to the referendum, on the one hand, it's like, yay, democracy, they voted. On the other hand, armed forces from another nation in there that were holding the referendum. And 95 is a suspiciously high number for that sort of thing.
Well, it is, but...
I'd like to see some tallies as to how many, what percentage of the population came out to vote. If it turns out like 95% and 95% of the people voted, that seems suspiciously high for any democracy. And so it's like people are already starting to question, it's like, oh, well, how much did Russia alter these numbers to guarantee it? Did they even need to alter the numbers? I mean, if they had said 72% of the people voted to have the Crimean area become part of Russia, I would have bought that much more willingly than 95%, because anything in democracy where you hit the 90s for percentile, it always, to me, smacks of like, oh yeah, that's a real valid result. Yes, 110% of the people voted for Castro. Yes, I can totally see how that number came out. 99% of the population voted for Saddam Hussein to remain in power. Yes. That's a completely legitimate poll, and there was no coercion happening.
Well, I don't know if coercion or even what you can call it. Like, I don't know if it's necessary to alter the result of the vote if the question is worded in the right way.
And that was another issue, too.
They mentioned, too, that sort of your options were...
join Russia.
It's like, don't do anything. Or
become
Russia,
your own autonomous region.
Yeah, I think there was only the sort of two options.
There was no option that definitively said, can we go back to being like a region of the Ukraine, please?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of questions about the whole thing there. And I got to say, though, by all measurements, it seems as though Mother Russia may have pulled off one of the least bloodiest coups in known history.
Right. Well, it's somewhat bloody. Definitely people died.
Some people died, and there was the whole thing about them occupying some areas outside of the Crimean Peninsula area, which is causing me to really start worrying, because, I mean, it's not looking good there.
Well, I often think, too, like, the thing about Crimea, and you read this in every news story that you read, is that
it's got a complex history.
Well, Russia had a base and has a base in various places and basically has soldiers. I think the Russian-Ukrainian relationship must be somewhat analogous to the Canadian-U.S. relationship.
It's crazier than that. I mean, when they left the Ukraine, they left like more nuclear weapons than the United Kingdom, than France and Germany combined.
Huh, yeah.
Sort of thing.
So you can imagine, like, if the United States was like, okay, we're taking over Canada militarily, it's like they already have probably enough personnel. Well,
they got 10 times the population.
It's not like they fight,
so,
but
yeah.
There are lots of U.S. like soldiers and
I can bet
equipment.
You this, though,
there's American planes in Canadian bases. There's American ships in Canadian bases.
If America tried taking over Canada, you would see a lot more domestic level terrorism events happening across Canada.
Really?
I do believe so. Canadians can get very, very angry about that sort of thing, and we'd probably just start taking lessons from Quebec and all their angry separatists, and we would have just some hell being raised on just the small scale.
Well, maybe some, I guess so. But imagine.
But the Ukrainian, sort of thing with the whole Crimea region, for all reports, it seems to be very docile. Very few shots fired, and almost all of them were warning shots.
Well, that's another reality of Crimea is that it had a Russian Russian-speaking. I don't know if it's a
people
large
that identify
minority
as
or
being Russians.
Actual majority.
It was a majority after Stalin. Stalin, I think it was him. Yeah, exported a lot of the native Tatars out of the area.
But taters.
Yeah. Taters. I have to pronounce it differently, otherwise I keep saying taters.
I don't know how to actually go.
I pronounce it Tatars,
okay.
like tartar sauce. I have to pronounce it somehow differently because I don't want to keep calling them taters, because that was my instinctive first response seeing it.
Yeah, and so they brought in Russians, and ever since then it's
but that population amount has been percentage-wise declining over the years to a point where it's not where it once was. So which was maybe another reason why I'm seeing 95% as being suspiciously high. But who knows where this is going to wind up going, because neither side really seems like it wants to get into a fight. Russia, I mean, could probably stand, getting into a scrape against another couple, like maybe some NATO stuff. America really does not want to get into a fight.
Oh, I see. Yeah, no, I
neither side really wants to escalate this to the point where they're, like flying planes over, dropping bombs on a city. No one really seems to want that.
Well, Republicans in America. And probably,
but those are the crazy Republicans that people aren't listening to for the most part, and thank goodness people aren't listening to them.
But unfortunately, I think some of their counterparts or equivalents are fairly close to Putin, like, the Russian versions of the Chicken Hawks are rather close to Putin in
we're going to find out what the Russian name
Russia.
is for Tea Party. The Russian Tea Partiers.
Yeah.
But, the majority of either side both wants is just to de-escalate, because certainly Obama doesn't want to exert American forces into another war and spend more resources and money that way. He just wants some peace and quiet to try and, okay, just re-equip and then just pay off the bills and just don't go out and do anything.
Yeah, well, every president says they don't want war, and that's for good reason, because war is stupid.
Did W actually ever say
that?
Well,
he probably said, I don't want to go to war, but I have to, or something like that. I don't know what the exact...
I can't imagine him actually saying that. I can see him going, yeehaw, but not him going on,
You have an interesting sort of cartoon memory of George Bush, but... Yeah.
But I just can't see him saying that he didn't want to go to war. He just doesn't strike me as that kind of guy.
Well, it's no. Everybody has to say, "I don't want to go to war, but I have to." That's what you say.
Well, yeah,
but
it
you're
just strikes
George
me as
Bush
him
or
being,
whoever you are.
One of the least likely to say that in the presidents of America I can recall.
I don't know how he actually, phrased it or whatever.
I bet you Reagan would have phrased it very eloquently.
Yeah, you think so?
His, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. That was really eloquently put.
I guess it was eloquent. It was also sort of blunt and straightforward. So sometimes that's important.
Yeah, I know, it was kind of nice to see them fighting towards a good purpose. Because, say what you want about the Republican Party nowadays. It was for a good purpose to try and get down that wall then. Nobody wanted two Germanys. That was never good.
Was that the Berlin Wall?
Yeah,
that was all
that's
about?
what he was talking about with the whole thing.
Okay.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And he's talking about, the whole Iron Curtain.
You're Ronald Reagan there?
That's as good as it gets. I'm not going to try very hard.
Mr. Gorbachev. Oh, no, it's Kennedy.
He would have him talk to Castro about don't launch those missiles. Because, trust me, he's the one who saved the day. The day could have been lost with Kennedy doing something wrong on that missile crisis.
Okay. Well, I feel like we're getting into the history podcast, which we're not.
No, but yes, I think that's interesting in the fiction is the numbers I believe were too high, and that's what makes me believe it is a fiction. Is 95% of the people voted to leave? That doesn't seem like a realistic number to me. If they voted 65%, 72%, even somewhere in the high 80s, 87% of the people voted said that they wanted to join part of Russia for this whole thing.
Mm-hmm. So do you have a threshold where you say I stopped believing after, is it at 90?
Well, see, that's the weird thing is the more I look at it, the more it appears to be where my grade average was in high school. 60%.
89.
That's not very impressive, but it's technically there. 72%. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's almost 3 out of 4 people going for it. It's respectable. 87. That's a pretty decent number. That's just 95%. Really? That seems suspiciously high. So I don't know. Maybe out there, if you were the kind of person that only got, the A+ average in high school, maybe 95% seems more respectable for you than it does for me.
I'll tell you how I think referendums work in capitalist countries, in traditionally capitalist countries. I guess Ukraine and Russia are technically capitalist now, but I guess maybe they don't have as strong a tradition. But I think the reason why we expect sort of that number, hovering around 50%, and you see it in the American presidential election, but also you see it in Canadian, you just get over 30% to have a majority in Canada, basically.
Which is horrible. If we're going to have more than 2 parties, we need a better system than one's past the post.
And a lot of Western European countries are similar in that they have a lot of parties, and then they all form the government.
Which, by the way, look up what Australia is doing for its voting system.
Okay.
You get to rank each one a party by how much you want them in, and then they take that and they weigh the votes, and so it's usually not the person who gets the highest votes, because they also get some of the lowest votes in their opposing party, but it's usually the third most popular, because nobody's really angry at them. They really haven't done anything to cheese anyone off, so they get into power because they're just the least evil. That's the least down-marked amongst all political groups.
That reminds me of, I saw an article someone had written about President Obama, about how they had a theory of why he got to be president, or why he ended up where he is today. And they were saying that he is very sort of inoffensive, and he doesn't necessarily push for positions. He will have positions and he'll have preferences, I think is the word they used, but he won't necessarily champion sort of positions. He just sort of lets people do what they're going to do.
Which is not a bad option, I think, a lot.
Well, and so it doesn't anger people, and so then you can continue to earn votes that way.
That's the same sort of mentality I've used to win a lot of board games in the past. It's according to this, I'm supposed to mess over on one person as I move the robber to prevent their territories and Settlers of Catan. So 1 or 2 it's you, 3 or 4 it's you, 5 or 6 it's you. Roll. Oh, came up a 5. Have to put it on your one spot for you. I'll take one of your resources, and then no one feels the urge to smite back at me because it's ooh, he got me on purpose. It's no, man, that's just how the dice fell. It's just how it went.
Yeah, that's
so they feel a lot more.
okay.
It's a lot more of a passive thing, and then less people out to get me means I'm that much closer to victory.
Well, I'd say that's one strategy. Another strategy would be to go against the person who seems to be winning. That's usually a good strategy. That people can't fault you if the other people at the board will be sort of on your side. The guy winning will be like, well, I guess I understand because I was winning.
I was 2 points away from victory, so I get what you did there.
I was going to suggest sort of teaming up on someone, but that can backfire because you might be perceived as a bully, and then someone like your teammate might be like, well, I don't feel so good about teaming up, so I'm going to attack you instead.
But see, that's the thing is I've seen this like Settlers of Catan played with my brother Adam, and he plays to win.
Mm-hmm.
And so he will always go for oh, you're closest to winning, you got the most points, I'll stop you there.
Yeah.
And if that happens twice or even 3 times to a person, they start forming a grudge. And so if I just play neutral and effectively passively, I just said 5 or 6, I mean that's how I went with the whole thing, so it's on you. People start ganging up reflexively on my brother, and then when everyone's focused on him, I sweep in and win the day.
Yeah, well, he likes to play dominant, which is that's one strategy.
It's a style, and it wins in a lot of
yeah.
games. It's just I noticed when you get a couple people and you can tell when they're starting to try to say, I got to get back at this Adam guy. Ooh, he's been getting my goat. And so then it's I'll just just keep playing the nice passive guy, and then when everyone's going up against him, like I said, I sweep. That's I think that's 10 points for me, isn't it? Thanks guys, it was a great game. I didn't know I was so close to victory.
Yeah, well, especially games like Settlers of Catan and similar games, it can be helpful to be that sort of under-the-radar second or third place and sort of just build up your position strategically.
Play down a few cards at the last moment. Okay, I get the 2 points for this longest road. Bam, I'm there.
And so people don't notice you as much.
I do say people also seem a little happier at winning to somebody who's a little bit more modest. It's I guess that was 10 points. I kind of want to play a little bit longer, but 10's 10. As opposed to, and then I win the day because I'm the best opponent now, and I beat you all at the game. Rawr. It's well, he just squeezed into 10 points. Good game, nice golf clap for you. So, at least that way I get less opponents against me. Well, I'm playing my subtle, easier style. I play soft style, my brother plays hard style. It's a yin and yang sort of thing.
Yeah.
Although maybe that's how we developed our styles as we were growing up. He plays aggressive at Monopoly. I'm just playing careful, passive, building slowly, inoffensively. Yeah. I don't get a full side, built up on the one that's one group here, one group there. And I just managed to cover enough that I don't go broke, and then all of a sudden, bam, I've won because they landed on my big one with the hotel, and that's how I seal my deal. Whereas he's trying to get the full long blocks, and he's playing more aggressively. I need this. I got to go with that. I got to try and drive him broke and then make an unfair deal to make sure he doesn't go out of the game, so that way I can get more money from him later.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's I think that's probably the preferable strategy. I guess if you're playing by the sort of established convention of the game, which is to win. You might be playing just to play and have fun, in which case you can slow play it.
Especially with something like Monopoly, if you're not having fun, you really are not going to have any fun over the 4 hours it sometimes takes to finish a game. But you can clearly see which sort of style that Russia plays with. They play very aggressive and dominant style, like my brother does.
Yeah,
whereas America
so.
Tries to at least these days
under Obama,
tries to play with a more passive, relaxed style. I don't want to get into this whole aggressive war with you. I just want to keep things going and build things up as they go. If I wind up winning, so be it, sort of style. Mind you, they did play with a hard style. I mean, Vietnam, Korea, all sorts of places throughout history. The last 30, 40, almost 50 years now. America has traditionally played with a more aggressive style, and that has not earned them a lot of happy people around the globe. So maybe they've learned to play a more passive, modest style.
Although, once again, I should caveat that we're not the History or Politics podcast, so we may have some of our details of our opinions a little bit
I
wrong,
will say this. America is called the Great Satan in a number of countries, and you don't see that being played out as Canada. They don't see people saying, oh yeah, they're coming in here, they're playing like the hard aggressive game, we're going to call them the Great Satan, and that's how we're going to consolidate power here and get everyone focused on against them.
Okay.
And no one's paying attention to the atrocities we're doing because, focus against the Great Satan. Because you need someone to rally against to win if you're going to play a hard style yourself.
Yeah, and I've heard that described as sort of like blowback, sort of like if you go in aggressively to a country, then if you cause damage that people perceive as unnecessary or excessive, like, and when I talk about damage, I mean actual human lives, like people's lives. So this is not not an abstract thing. This is actually people getting killed and losing families.
And not just
friends.
killed. I mean, there's that traumatic loss of limb sort of thing. I mean, that's at least as bad as a death sort of thing. Because that's like every day that person can walk out, on the crutches and show this is what America did to me.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's worse than just a gravesite.
And they describe that as blowback because that can turn into movements against America or whatever
the nation that's
country.
invading. And I think that's why Russia this time has caught the world by surprise. Is yes, they moved troops in, but they're not immediately bombing. They're not immediately shooting or crawling up the the native Ukrainian militias and police forces like that. They've played a very soft game, and that's why everyone's like, "Whoa, what do we do? Russia's playing a soft game, not a hard game right now. What's our tactic?" And Russia, I don't know if Russia can keep playing this sort of game because people are going to come up with a counter to them. But they managed to get a nearly bloodless coup. They took the Siberian Peninsula.
Crimean?
Crimean.
Siberian would be
Siberian,
a lot
I'm thinking back to some other history.
They already have that, and also it's a lot of land.
Yeah, they've had it for a while. That was something else I was thinking about.
It's not really a peninsula so much as a continent. But.
Yeah, a landmass close to Mongolia. As to why they haven't tried taking Mongolia, that's another issue.
Yeah, if I was playing Risk, I would just pick up Mongolia right then and there.
But, I mean, warning shots, mostly what's happened, very nicely done. Was it a fair election and unfair, like a referendum voting sort of thing? For the whole
yeah, probably not.
I mean, I really doubt it at this point. I'd have to see some very solid evidence to promote the yes, it was fair side.
Well, I wouldn't say, though, just the fact that it's 95% or whatever is... I would say that adds to suspicion.
The fact that there are, extraterritorial, armed forces in the area, and that there are some groups, that are pro-Russia, that are chanting in the streets with AK-47s, Russia, yeah. That's very hard to have true free democracy when it comes to such a vote. But you know what? I can't actively prove at this point that they did tamper with the numbers, so congratulations to Russia on having such a bloodless coup and playing things so soft, because they played against their style. Everyone says if Russia's going to invade, there's going to be tanks, there's going to be bombs going off, there's going to be people rounded up, it's going to be nasty, man. Remember what happened last time they started taking over stuff? It was pretty harsh. And
the last time was in Georgia. A similar thing, but they had Russian language speaking people sort of uprising within a country, and the country of Russia went in there and said, we're going to protect the people who speak Russian and the people. So they're playing that angle of it. How true that is, I don't know, but that's sort of what they've been doing.
And so this time they played against that sort of style, and everyone was kind of caught by surprise. And congratulations on such a wonderful game of nation craft. It's pretty much like a Game of Thrones sort of thing, but no one dies. Well, I guess that doesn't make it like Game of Thrones at all, then.
Well, a couple people, like a couple protesters here and there died.
But, for, a nation getting invaded, and then taken over by another one, that was very peaceful. Or at least so well managed that the news stories about any, we tried to uprise and then they just drove over us with a tank sort of thing, that hasn't made it out into the rest of the world. So,
well, not yet.
Any which way
cross your fingers. We're recording this sort of partway through the whole thing, so.
But right now, any which way you look at it, Russia's played the game masterfully. And so congratulations on them. And, I think there's a lot to be learned about writing, invading forces. If you want to do it as like a fantasy style or whatnot, this is something to pay attention to and look at exactly how they've done it. Consider all the sides. Like, Russia was trying to help, and now it has gone back to them because, it does have a good connected Russian history. Or, no, they've masterfully orchestrated this scheme. It's like they still did it very well. Any which way you cut it. It's done supremely well. I mean, this is the sort of thing that like dictators have wet dreams. They wish they could just, we're just going to send the troops in there, and then they'll become part of us, and then everyone will accept it. And how often does that actually happen? Like, almost never. And this one seems, for all intents and purposes, like it's going to happen peacefully and as calmly as you can ever expect from like a bunch of people, that suddenly wake up one day and it's like, hey, that was Russia on the side of that tank, wasn't it? What are they doing here? I didn't hear anything about a war game. Oh,
well, no, they've. That's the funny thing though. There's always been a Russian presence in that area. So,
but not the sort of thing where all of a sudden, it's like, you guys, soldiers can't go to work because they're kind of surrounding the base.
Yeah, that happened.
Yeah, and so it's one of those weird situations where it's like, well, what do we do now? It's like, well, they're not firing on us. I can't go to work. Should I just phone my superior and say I can't make it in? I got a bad case of the Russian flu. And so then everyone just went home. It's very peaceful, very calm for like another nation coming in on your borders unannounced. So, any which way you look at it, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Okay, so there, Ryan is pro-Russia?
I'm not pro-Russia. I'm masterfully playing the game.
Okay. So, we've probably talked enough about the news. Or do you have any final, I don't know.
I don't think the story is done by a long shot. I mean, there's the whole them taking some areas, outside of the Crimean Peninsula. And so we'll have to see where that goes. I mean, who knows if they're going to wind up splitting, like the eastern part of the Ukraine all goes in with that. Because that has traditionally been very Russian-allied as well. I mean, when the previous, Prime Minister, I've lost power and I got to run away now. Where does he run? He runs over to the east side where they've got a lot of pro-Russian stuff.
Okay.
So it may wind up being that, the Ukraine gets split in half. We have like a West Ukraine, East Ukraine sort of situation, like there was a West and East Germany. So the story's probably not done any which way you cut it, but congratulations, Russia. You've done very well. The vote may be rigged at 95%, but I think my grade for you so far is about a 95% as to how well you've played the game. As well as any game that actually involves human lives.
All right. Well, yes, the Great Game, as it was called during
the Game of Nations,
during the Age of Empires in the 19th century and early 20th.
Not that I believe this is the right time or place for playing that game again. I mean, sometimes it's good not to play a game again, but they seem to have really learned the rules very well. But no other nation on Earth is going to wind up accepting this properly, because that sets a very dangerous precedent. If Mongolia was to say, yes, we support them doing this because they are protecting their forces, next thing you know, they can just walk in and say, same issue, different area with Mongolia. I mean, part of the Trans-Siberian Railroad does go down over into there. So they could say, we've got a lot of Russian-speaking people here. We want to protect their presence. You're now a territory of Mother Russia. So no nation can officially accept this. And that's about the only flaw, aside from them breaking 7 treaties, to have done this. But there's no one to really enforce those 7 treaties. Like, what are you going to do? Fine them? Go to war over it? No one wants to go to war. And if no one wants to go to war over, you breaking the treaty was null and void just by virtue of that fact. So yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of loose ends here and there. Otherwise, yeah.
Once again, Ryan is gushing over Putin there.
I'm gushing over how well he did it. I didn't know he had it in him. He seemed like a strong-arm sort of man. I had no idea he had the velvet touch. But yes, on to what we've been doing this week.
Okay, sounds good.
Besides, reading the news, and I got to say that don't read the comments section on any of those Russia stories. full of ugly, nasty, horrible things being said back and forth. Yes, what have you been doing this week, Josh?
A lot of things, as always. Running lots of simulations.
Oh, right.
As I always like to say. My simulation sort of getting started. I'll tell you about this one first.
Okay.
I am taking an improv class, so I'm having so much fun with that. And of course, that's all about telling stories and pretending to be someone you're not. So I just started that this week. It's what's the guy's the guy? I'll give him a shout out. Dave Morris. He's a teacher. He's like a genius, improv genius. I'll put a link to his website. He's my teacher. He's teaching me improv, so I'm learning that.
Very nice.
Learning how to make eye contact and get that the eye contact with the person that you're working with, and sort of picking up subtle cues on improv, because that's something I have a theoretical understanding of improv, but when it comes to those the actions and the being in a scene, he was saying that you have to be aware of sort of what the other person is doing. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's why I think on Whose Line Is It Anyways, Ryan Stiles and Colin Mockery work so well together on that, is because they know the subtle intricacies of how they're going to go. And if Ryan says, come on up here and stand over there, Colin will, and he'll be ready for this, that, and the other.
Yeah, that's right. And you got to be ready to take cues and riff off of them. Well, riff. I don't know if that's the word, but yeah. Basically, they start out a scenario, and you say you must grab it, because otherwise you're standing on stage doing nothing.
Yeah.
So you grab onto whatever scenario, and then you add to it. So yeah, and add details, and I could talk. I don't want to talk too much about improv, because you can learn about it in other places. And also,
well, the thing is you could learn about it just by going to other places, but there is something to be said about studying the stuff. I mean, Whose Line Is It Anyways? I mean, they've got all sorts of their clips up on YouTube, so just to go to YouTube and look that up, and don't just watch for the funny stuff. Actually study it and how they're going about back and forth.
Yeah, that's true.
It's worth the effort.
Yep. Yeah, it's very good. And the other project I've been working on simulation-wise is I told you a little bit about the game that I didn't tell you anything. I am working on a game, and it is... I have a couple of games in mind, but I've started development on a collectible trading card game, CTCG, yes, in which the cards are hexagons, and in which you, as you play, you lay them out on the table, and you make a scene. Each one has a land on it, so it's tentatively it's called Hexlands. That's I'll tell you the working title. It probably won't be called that by the end.
Hexagonia.
I'm going to work on the names. That might be something like that. So yeah, I'm going to be going to have it might be a Kickstarter Indiegogo. It's not set up yet, but I'm announcing it sort of very early in the process, because this is sort of what I've been told by, advice and stuff for developing a game, is that this is one strategy, is to get little announcements with the very smallest of progress out there, just to let people know what you're doing. So I'm letting you know I'm working on a game. It's still very early, but I am ultimately gonna make a Kickstarter or Indiegogo, in which I'll basically have cards available for people that, if they support the whole campaign, they'll get basically the beta versions of the cards. So you're basically buying packs of a trading card game, but it's in early development, so they'll be kind of not so good. But
if they're hexagons, would it be a trading card game or more like a trading token game?
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought about that a little bit. And
TTG.
I don't really mind what people ultimately decide to call it, but as far as my thinking goes, development-wise, I am thinking of it very much as a trading card game. I'm developing it as if it's basically Magic with hexagons, which I want to be. I don't know if I should be, because I'm borrowing a lot from Magic.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, is you're just initiating the whole thing from Magic.
Yeah.
That said, it might be worthwhile to see what they've got documented. I do remember back in the day reading that they managed to copyright the term tapping.
Yeah, well, I don't have tapping in my game, so
if you
that's
move
all right.
a card 90 degrees to indicate a usage pattern, they've got the copyrights to that. And that sounds a little weird when you say it out loud. It's just... But yeah, they managed to get the copyright for it. So you just to figure out what they've got going on there and what they hold the rights to.
So yeah, watch for that coming from me, and I'm sure like it's not. I did look at the Magic the Gathering official patent, and yeah, it's basically like I'm cool. So.
So yeah, best of luck to you, and it'd be nice hearing further developments as it goes.
Yeah, and I'll link to whatever I put up, and you know, I'm not in a hurry either. I'm just developing this by myself. I might be able to get you to work on it a little bit if you have
I'm
ideas.
always willing to try and get some time on my side devoted to helping out a friend on this. Yeah,
I'll be getting friends and family to play test and things like that. So. Yeah.
Very nice.
But yeah, it's basically a project I'm sort of working on by myself for now. But yeah.
Well, so long as you enjoy it, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. Because, I mean, just the sublime joy of creation is all you really require to have a good time. And if anyone else sees it, that's extra. That's bonus, man. If the world can enjoy it, that's congratulations in order. So.
Yeah.
Yes, we're all expecting big things from you, Josh.
Well, no, like one small step at a time is sort of how I'm taking it. And I suppose it's possible it might not go anywhere. I might lose interest in this thing because I often undertake projects and then sort of fall off interest. But this one looks like I might stick with it. So then that's why I'm sort of announcing it on the podcast and sort of announcing that I'm planning on ramping it up a little bit more. So
very nice.
But it may be a long time too before it's a finished project. But that's
hey man, even Richard Garfield did not make magic over the weekend.
Yeah, and
it took 4 months.
Sort of my hope is that maybe this project, maybe someone is listening to this in 10 years or something. Is like, oh, that's where he started out, or that's how he started. So I want to sort of, in some ways, sort of document it. And that's the thing. If you start a lot of little projects like this, like, you do this and it didn't work out, try that, didn't work out. But if you document all of them as you go, maybe one day you will have your big success. And then it'd be really cool for people to be able to, like historians, to go back to your early work and be like, oh, this is his prototype and this is what he was thinking.
This is the week he made that big change that really took off. That's what everyone dug about it, and that's why it became the greatest, collectible token game,
well,
on the face of the planet in 5 years.
I almost turned it back into like card shapes instead of hexagons. I almost made that decision, but
hexagons are mighty cool, though.
Yeah, I ultimately stuck with hexagons, and I think I will. Although it's still a possibility it might go back to just regular rectangular playing cards, and that would be fun too.
But they only have 4 sides. I don't know.
Yeah, but you can still play with them and lay them down on the table.
With the hexagon, you've got 50% more sides than the standard, card.
Well, the thing about a rectangular card is cheaper to print.
Oh, I won't lie. It's easier to have the nice cut manufactured thing going on.
You can lay them out in like an alternating sort of brick pattern, in which case they do connect to the same number of cards on all sides. And also you can, if you really wanted a hexagon, like if that was the thing, you could just draw a hexagon in the middle of your rectangular card. So
you make some pretty persuasive arguments.
But I did ultimately go decide
the current design.
The current design
is hexagon tiles.
Yeah, it is hexagons. And also because I can fit more artwork on the hexagon too. The way I want to do it, because I want to do it like horizontal pictures, and there's a bit more space the way I've got it laid out. So. Anyways, that.
You've got reasons.
I don't know if that's too much. Well, this is a game design podcast, so I guess that's sort of what we do.
And fictional analysis stuff, too. I mean, it's nice to know why. So, someone's looking back years from now and say, why did he go with the hexagons? Why didn't he go with my favorite shape, the pentagon? He's got answers now.
I would love to make a pentagon game, though, but they don't. It's very hard to make a grid that fits pentagons. And
I think historically the Pentagon-based games have not always worked out well.
Yeah.
They get seen as satanic for some reason.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking, though, maybe I would make, like, just for fun, just have a pentagon in every pack or something like that. You know, one pentagon, like a wild card is a pentagon. Like, how does this fit? Or maybe it breaks up the, you know, the board consists of hexagons, and if you have one pentagon, it's like there's empty spaces, but there's also, like, you can't fit them in. So maybe that could be an aspect of gameplay. I don't know. But, I mean,
things
that's...
to consider.
That
It happened here on the podcast. The idea first fermented, man.
Yeah, that might be too fancy, though. I want to keep it very simple. Then
maybe they're an extra card for advanced play.
Oh, yeah, could be.
There you go.
Or maybe somebody, like, maybe I could, again, speculative, hypothetical, but I'm thinking of maybe opening it up, you know, to a open license of some kind where anybody can develop for it, in which case it could be somebody's just, I'll make an expansion that's hexagons, you know, or whatever.
The freaky hexagon, pentagon combination expansion groups. Oof. I don't know. But best of luck to you.
Okay, yeah, and I'll be updating you sort of as, on my progress. In the ensuing weeks. Yeah. Okay.
Very nice.
So that's what I've been up to in my simulations.
Nice.
What have you been up to there?
Well, I've been trying to get things done quickly and properly enough in the Marvel game for Facebook.
And your Facebook Marvel game.
It's surprisingly good. I mean, we're finally on like a villain that feels like a real villain. It's Apocalypse.
Okay.
And I've been trying so hard to get the alternate costumes for the new guy up there, and I managed to get it. Got the point scores required to finish off this quest and that bit. And I'm finally done. I'm looking at my resource and I'm thinking, I have a few chances to get the extra special weapon. And I gotta say, I've spent a lot of time late at night getting this stuff done. Like, if I want the new thing that's going out for the PvP, group, I'm going to have to fight 5 successful times every night for the next 10 days. And I hate PvP. I hate the player versus player stuff. I don't have any fun for it. And yet, I want to go for it for the reward.
Yeah, okay.
But I don't know, man. It's getting so heavily weighted down on me. It's like, I hate this part. I don't want to be awake. It's 1 a.m. Let me just get one last win so I can go to bed.
Okay, well, yeah, that's a way. I mean, people play games that way, sure.
But the rest of it I like. I mean, if I can get, this weapon here, that weapon there, it's like, I think I could have some real fun with this construct design and this full weapon set. And I'd like a chance to do it. But I realize I'm going to have to spend a couple late nights to do it so far. And it's ending in 16 or so hours from now, so. My final chance to get that weapon I really want, but I hate random chance. I play so many games where it's rolling the dice randomly, but you know what? I hate my luck at odds. If I need to roll a 5%, I am never going to roll that 5%. And I've made peace with that fact, even if I really do want the item that comes 1 every 20 times.
Yeah, I will say, like, in games, I've been annoyed by random chance things, too. Especially when it's sort of like, that's your expected progression. Because I like the idea of random chance when it's just a bonus treasure. It's like, oh, wow, I got this treasure I wasn't even expecting because it was random. But when it's like, okay, here's the progression that you're supposed to do, get this, and this, collect this set.
This is a full set. I've got 2 out of the 4 sets. If I get this piece, I can just spend the gold and buy the 4th one. Because that's how you get the 4th one, is you got to spend gold for it. And that's the one that you spend money on or get very slowly. But I don't want to buy that 4th one if I don't get the 3rd one. Yeah,
exactly. And so if it's part of the progression, it seems kind of silly that it would be randomness that would let you get it, because sort of everyone wants it, so it's part of the established storyline of the game. So.
At some point in the future they will sell it for like 200 gold, get all 4 pieces of the set.
Yeah.
But I don't want to spend that much gold because I, get it very slowly because I haven't actually paid any money. But the fact that it makes me consider spending the money to buy the gold so I can get the set later on I think that is successful marketing, because that is how the game stays profitable and it continues to exist. That's why the PvP is set up as it is to get people to get the better wins, to get the easier fights. You pay for the really sweet weapons, and quick upgrading your heroes. And it's hard to play the game for free. It's effectively the freemium, but I'm trying so hard to play it for free. But I don't know, man. That, and they introduced a new level for all the heroes. So now it's like, those guys I had at maximum level, now they got more work to go. I'm still leveling up these new ones.
One more level to keep?
Yeah, they added one more level.
Doesn't sound that bad.
No, but I've got something like, let's see, at this point I've got all but about 4 or 5 of the available heroes. And it's like, now I'm going to have to level up the final ones again. Because I want to get all my heroes level up where I can use all their moves and do all their things. But it takes time and effort, and it's like, now if I want to have a completion sort of thing, I got to level up everybody at least once more. And it's kind of like, step back to the beginning again.
Okay.
But I am technically making a net progress. I'm leveling faster than they're putting in new levels, so I'm getting closer to getting all my heroes maxed out.
Okay, well, they didn't fail at that aspect of the game design then.
No, and I can understand where they're going from, because there are people at the high end who have gotten their main agent is at level 300, which is the maximum. All their heroes are at level 13, which is the maximum, and they're saying, well, what am I doing now? I've bought all the extra suits for them. I've got nothing to really play for except for the random chance. And so every once in a while, it's like, well, here's a new game mechanic. You can upgrade some of your abilities by putting this into their slots.
Okay. Or,
like, now there's another level for them to get even better at. And so I can understand it, but I gotta say, playing the free, slow, natural style, it's almost like Sisyphus, man. I try and get all that boulder up to the top of the hill only to find out there's more to go. And it's like, I'm back at the beginning.
Well, are you... I mean... that final set of equipment must be really special for you to want it bad enough to be
playing
sort of punishing
till 1,
yourself.
Almost 2 in the morning.
Yeah, it must be really cool.
Well, that's the thing, is that each item gets better the more of the set you have.
Yeah.
So I've got one. It looks just basically like a spritz bottle. Spritz. You spray the entire enemy, and it causes a few negative afflictments on them. It's like, oh no, now you're slow, now you're weak. But if you have 2 items, it has a chance of causing some more serious stuff. If I have 3 out of 4 items, it can cause status ailments that will actually injure the enemies, and such and so forth. And there's a sword you can get. It doesn't do great damage, but if you have all 4 pieces, it will always crit if possible, and it will any negative afflictments that the enemy has, it will take advantage of that for added damage. And so the more you have, the better they all are. And now that I've got a taste of them with 2. I really want that 3rd one. I want a 4th one. But I don't want the 4th one if I can't get the 3rd one, because I want the complete set, and I don't want to blow half of the gold I've managed to accumulate to get a non-complete set.
Now, you're doing PvP to get them. Are these useful for...
No, I'm doing PvP to get an extra item.
That's different.
Use.
Okay.
Yes. And but it ties in, to do some of the quests in the chain to get that item, you have to get this other item that can only be found as like a random roll on the boss over here. And so I find myself trying to reach out to all corners of the game to try and get it all, and it's just slightly bigger than my arms can reach out and grasp, because I'm feeling the strain. But it must be a good game if I keep going back and back every dang day.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, it's not like it's compelling me. Like, as soon as I get home, it's like, just put my daughter down and ignore her. I got to get on this game right now. No, I know my priorities.
Okay, that's good to hear.
So, it's not like an addiction. Like, you hear some people, they have to play World of Warcraft and they'll ignore everything else and they'll forget eating. And then you've got the term poop socking. Yeah, and it's basically exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah, I didn't want to hear that, but okay.
No. But yeah, those are people who are addicted, and this game isn't addictive, but it is getting me just enough wound up that it's never truly leaving my mind. So there are many successful elements I'm going to like studying once everything's done and the dust is settled. And that said, I've been doing a little bit more XCOM, but I decided this week I'm not going to play as much XCOM because I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. Because last week I told the people, everyone out there listening, I want more. I want a game that has more than XCOM can possibly give me, as much as I like the game.
Oh, so you thought of some possible expansions or like new threats that you could face in the game of XCOM?
Well, I worked it into my own mind. I know the Tri-Stat system fairly well. So what if I was to devise a Tri-Stat-based gaming system for, and a game where you play a bunch of elite agents who are fighting against some sort of invaders or whatever.
Okay, so at its core, it's basically XCOM.
XCOM encounters, one facet of what it winds up being. I mean, you could take elements from, we'll say, the Warhammer, 40K stuff.
Okay.
Sort of thing.
So maybe this is sort of an overall system that XCOM might be an instance of.
Yeah. You could take aspects, I suppose, of the X-Files in here, or that series Supernatural.
Okay.
All sorts of things. And I came up with 2 tables. One for, what kind of enemies are you going to be facing?
Okay.
You can choose, randomly sort of thing in this table, or you can roll 1 or 2 die 10. 1 die 10 if you want just like normal, this is just regular, what you see is what you get. Or roll twice to mix the results and get something a little fun and dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you would like to take some time to roll some dice for me, Josh.
Yeah, I'll roll some. I've got some your dice, actually, but
I've got
good enough.
8 different types of organizations for what you could be. Because you don't always necessarily need to be like, we're a bunch of commandos. So let's make this a fun mixed group. Roll 2 8-siders, and we'll find out what sort of organization this would wind up being.
Okay, there we go.
A 1 and a 5.
1 and 5.
Organized crime and a cabal. So your organization would have,
So instead of being sort of the government from XCOM, the government organization that, fights aliens, I am organized crime and a cabal.
Yes, so, it'd be mystics, cultists, wizards, so, you would be like, geez, that's a pretty interestingly fun combo. This would be like, we'll say the Mafia, in this case, for your organized crime, and your cabal would be their religious ties. The Mafia is well known for being proper, upright, Roman Catholics, right?
Yeah, they're Italian.
Aside from that whole bit about, not, obeying the government and all that, but whatever. So yes, I suppose you would be, working with the mystic end of the organized crime of, the Mafia.
So sort of instead of having XCOM bases with ships and stuff, you could have like a church with, I don't know, what would be the church equivalent of a spaceship? Sort of like a, I guess, sarcophaguses or...
You got like really wickedly well-protected Pope-mobile sort of thing,
Oh, yeah, Pope-mobile.
There you go.
You fly in with your Pope-mobile and...
the Pope plane sort of thing, sort of style, and it'd be... be like shaped like a cross or something.
So and instead of shooting lasers, or maybe you would shoot lasers, but possibly you like shoot holy beams or something.
You could have consecrated bullets, sort of thing. Instead of it being like a cultist, you'd actually have the bullets being properly blessed by a priest before you take them out in the field.
Yeah. Well, I guess because you're Mafia too, so those are your guys, your trench coat guys with the Tommy guns,
suits, and all that sort of thing. But you know what? They've got some mystical backup going on.
Yeah.
But let's roll 2 10-siders and let's find out who you're fighting. Let's hope there's something supernatural going on there.
Oops. I'm not going to count that. There.
A 10 and an 8.
10, 8.
Hey, well, thank goodness. 8 happens to be the supernatural. And that's...
goody!
generic cryptid sort of thing, all catch-all categories. Slenderman, Sasquatch... things that only really exist in shadow and fear. And 10 is zombies. So these would be like Sasquatch zombies.
Sasquatch zombies.
And the things that go bump in the night sort of thing is let's take a little bit of a GM artistic license. The Pope has managed to find some way to properly expel such beings, and do they like the exorcism that effectively kills them? Their damned souls go back to hell.
Would it be Sasquatch zombie or zombie Sasquatch?
Let's see.
I think maybe Sasquatch zombie would be like there's some sort of supernatural connection between the zombies and Sasquatch.
So Sasquatch bites a person when they die, they come back as a zombie, or it's the corpse of a Sasquatch coming out.
Well, yeah, probably one of those two, maybe both. Whereas zombie Sasquatch is like, yeah, Sasquatch just happens to be another creature in the world, and then zombies come and bit him, and now he's also a zombie.
I suppose that's not a bad combination, either way. But yeah, so we take some artistic license for in the GM is the Pope has managed to properly, excommunicate, or just dismiss the souls of all the horrible and unnatural creatures that exist in the dark corners of the world. Unfortunately, they rise up and they're coming on back.
Sweet.
And so they need someone who's going to be able to keep the peace and prevent them from harming these perfectly innocent and upright people that happen to occupy the world.
Yeah.
And you know what? The church does have connections with the mafia. When things need to get done and it's going to be bloody and it's not going to be pretty, the mafia takes control of this sort of thing. And that's why them...
Sure.
I'm just making this up as I go. And that's why them aided by, priests who will properly bless the bullets and the ammunition and properly sanctify their three-piece, double-breasted suits. That's what they're going to do, is they're going to fight the zombie Slender Man sort of thing and other horrible creatures that you regularly only find on bad sci-fi channels. As they come back, from the dead. And that's your game then.
I like it, yeah, and well,
I can dig it.
So yeah, basically this takes your XCOM scenario where you have a squad of soldiers,
a squad of elite people,
elite guys, and it sort of just reskins it. And in some ways, I mean, obviously you can do cool new mechanics if you like, but on some level it's just a reskinning, and it's pretty cool.
I do like it, and it does opt up for some interesting cross-combines. Like, I do have aliens. They're the number one on the list for the enemies.
Yeah.
But you could have been, like, a cabal. You could have been wizards fighting aliens.
Yeah.
Or if you had rolled a 1 and a 0, it could have been alien zombies. The zombie virus exists, but it's not human in origin. The aliens, they got swarmed by the whole thing. Their entire race is wiped out, but they're not dead. They're still moving, and they're still hungry. Now they go from inhabited planet to inhabited planet, eating everything they can find.
Cool.
And so you're a bunch of wizards who cast fireballs that stop it.
Yeah, yeah. And, well, I should ask, though, one of the key aspects of XCOM, I guess it's once you've played it a few times and you've played the older version, so you know the story, but I remember playing XCOM for the first time. It was like, oh, I didn't even know if they were aliens for sure. Like, I don't know if that was... I think they said, oh, there's a UFO or, stuff like that. But you sort of find out about the plot as you go. And
exactly what the enemy units are. Like, nobody gets warned about a chrysalid the first time they fight a chrysalid.
Yeah, it's like, holy crap, what is that?
That hit me really hard. I think this guy's down. I got to go up here. And then they go up and they try and shock it and they try and kill it. Okay, the chrysalid's down. Oh God, why is he up and moving towards me? And then all of a sudden his skin rips off as it's like a new chrysalid comes out, and everyone's like, oh my God, 1994 is like, holy crap, what happened to that zombie?
Yeah.
The skin just ripped off it. And that's another way you could wind up taking it. It doesn't have to necessarily be that, for instance, in what you rolled for the supernatural and zombies, you could take the line from the chrysalids. It could be that the supernatural creatures are coming through corpses. First the corpse raises up, and if you can't put the corpse back down on the ground quick enough, the supernatural beasts just rip forth from there, and all of a sudden you've got these living supernatural creatures coming out of the corpses, and every person who dies is another potential conduit for these horrible and unnatural creatures to come into our world.
Yep, that's sufficiently scary. So what I'm saying, though, is that sort of the player sort of has to not necessarily know what he's facing, especially if you're creating this world where there's a possibility of all these different sort of supernatural or alien threats, or just all kinds of even magic threats.
You don't necessarily need to choose. The game master could just roll weekly. Okay, this week you're fighting aliens. Yeah. Next week you fight. Let's see here. We've got extra-dimensional invaders. You have to fight duplicates of yourselves invading from an alternate reality.
Yeah, that'd be a thing. Yeah.
Next week, it's going to be a rival organization that wants to try and take you out. There's going to be some counter-espionage stuff going on, some data thefts going, and they're going to try and steal what steal the corpses you stole from those aliens.
Or you could frame the campaign as your organization is sort of a catch-all for like defense against supernatural or weird or just aliens. You could frame it that way, and then sort of you find out as you progress that, oh, it turns out our main foe happens to be the Sasquatch zombies or the zombie Sasquatches.
Yeah.
It turns out that's where it seems to head, and then sort of if you do happen to bring in the other sort of factions, like these other aliens or these other creatures,
they're a little bit of a change of pace. Not exactly a major player; they're a secondary sort of thing.
Yeah, and you can decide how tied into the plot you want them to be. They could be totally, completely just another separate.
Yeah, because I mean,
aspect.
look at Buffy. I mean, I made it 7 seasons with some nice. Each season having an overarching big bad, and yet every once in a while there was just a monster of the week sort of thing that happened.
Yeah.
And no one complains. Like that had absolutely no real ties to the grand story arc of the entire season.
Well,
I didn't like that episode.
I wouldn't say no. I bet someone somewhere complained.
But not enough people to have them change that and say, no, we're never going to do that again. That was causing problems.
And that's standard for sort of sci-fi fantasy TV, is that you do have to have those kind of episodes where it's just,
They're a palate cleanser. Sometimes, like when X-Files was getting big into its own mythology, people were saying, I kind of missed the Monster of the Week. And so, Monster of the Week sort of thing. It's like, this was nice and easy. Quick, digestible.
It's palate cleanser, but also it helps to establish the character and sort of how they respond in different situations. It builds their background and their personality and what we know of them. So so it's important all around.
And this is actually one of the reasons, like with the potential, like everything, and then what are you going to do about it, and what are you going to fight them against with? Which is why I like the Tri-Stat system. In XCOM, there's a research thing. Like if you want to get your better weapons, you got to research them. And then, you have to make them. Whereas in the Tri-Stat game, if you want to have a big, powerful laser weapon, it would likely be an item of power. Okay. And then how do you get an item of power? Well, you have to spend the points. So if you want to do everything, you're going to need a lot of points to do this with. And so it intrinsically tries to either keep you focused or let you know you're not going to make good progress all around if you're going to try and do everything, because you're going to spend little points here, little points there. Nothing specializes out. You just become a jack of all trades. So you might have laser weapons powered by, I don't know, a magic imp in a bottle sort of thing, and that's the same. It's just the same as one powered by an E power cell. But if you want to try and do everything at once and you want to try and have it all, it's going to impact how quickly you can really get the high sweet stuff. I suppose you could come up with like some pre-generated items, like a laser rifle with prerequisites. You need so many scientists, working on something that has you can work with, and some proper manufacturing locations. So, I think there's a lot of interesting potential in the whole thing.
Cool.
And I might want to take this a little bit further and see if I can come up with a little bit more. Like I've got some notes on here. I want to finish writing up my little notes on this, and then what else? Maybe make notes as to whether or not it's doing it to like publicly, where everyone knows you're doing it, or privately, like you're fighting a shadow war. Because
that's cool.
I'm not 100% certain if the XCOM group is known to the world at large in the XCOM game. There seems to be news reports of like an unknown, like a military, people stopped aliens here. They were seen, taking, an unconscious alien aboard their craft, raises a specter of government involvement. And so people don't seem to know, they know that aliens are terrorizing these cities. Entire nations are panicking sometimes. But they don't seem to be aware that XCOM exists to help stop it. So I might want to put some notes as, threat is public, your team is is a secret.
Yeah.
And how that might want to play out.
Now, if this were a role-playing game, for example, though, you might want to give the players some say over whether it's secret or not. You might give that decision over to them.
The basic premise.
Maybe start it as secret.
Well, no, as would be the basic premise is they get to decide. They are like the effective creators of whatever organization it is they want.
Okay. Yeah.
So they don't need to roll randomly for their organization. If they want to be a cabal of mystics, they can be like the Druids of Stonehenge. Or Neo Stonehenge, they've got techno artifacts in there. They can have
Sweet.
As like a corporate sponsorship, sort of thing. If that's how they want to do it, that's how they can do it. And they decide that. They decide their organization. The DM, the game master decides what sort of foes they're facing. Or the players can say, hey, can we fight aliens? Can we have wizards versus aliens? And then, the game master says, yeah. Yeah, okay, that sounds cool. I think I can come up with an idea or two.
Yeah.
And there you go. And so, yeah, I might want to, work on this a little bit more and figure, what I'm doing with this. I want to see where this goes because I want more. And if all I say is I want more, but I'm not going to do anything about it, I don't deserve more.
There you go.
That's my opinion on the subject. So I at least want to explore what I want when I say I want more.
Cool.
I don't just want to be a nag.
Yeah.
And that was my big thing this week was coming up with wonderful different groups of organizations and counter evil groups.
Yeah, that's what you've been up to. That's cool. We don't have too much time for a main topic but we wanted to talk more about XCOM, basically, right?
Well, it was something we only briefly touched on last week. Was I like the squads, I like the individual members, and this surprised me because there's not much to them. They are, I won't say completely randomly generated. I mean, if you have a person from Nigeria for one of your recruitees, there's a very likelihood that they're a black person. But aside from that, everything just seems to be fairly randomly generated. Their stats come out fairly random. The class they get assigned when they gain their first rank is effectively random.
Well, I remember playing the old version of XCOM. I used to get there's this guy with a Russian name. There's a French guy.
Yes, the first group you started off with was not pre-generated. It was just given to you. Because I remember Otto Berger, because my brother would not stop laughing because it seemed so hilarious. The German's guy was named Otto Berger.
Otto Berger?
His name is Otto. Otto, and his surname...
From The Simpsons?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And his surname was Berger.
Burger, like Otto likes to eat burgers?
Yes.
Okay.
Or no, I guess it was spelled, like the B-E-R-G-E-R, I'm the Burger Meister.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's one of the guys' names was Otto Berger, and I believe that was a non-randomly generated first, squatty. Because I do remember in the original 94 game, apparently, when you get everybody up and have them psychically trained, the original crew you had is always phenomenally good for psychic powers. And so the hard part is keeping them alive long enough to get them trained in psychic powers. So, yeah, okay, there's that issue there. But yeah, I mean, there's not much to them. There's not a huge amount of stats. They don't have as many stats as my D&D characters do.
Yeah, so they have a name and a skin color. And
random hair color. There's 6
color.
or 7 different voices to choose from, but they all say the same things.
Yeah.
It's not like you can if you go for voice 7, it sounds like Shaggy. It's oh, let's get out of here, Scoob, I'm panicking. No, he says the same thing, just with a different voice.
Well, I will say, it came up at Godicon a couple of times in different panels and games I played, and it was mentioned that basically the thing that makes players care about a character is the name, and the fact that if you do Goblin number 1, 2, 3, 4, or if you name them each like Shagrat, and that's from Lord of the Rings, and what's his friend?
Bogstink.
I
just made that up.
Yeah, no, that's good. That might well have been, but anyways, yeah. If you name them something and you describe them that way, they might. Well, if they have ugly names like that, then maybe the players are not as likely to keep them alive.
I will say, a lot of the people in the Sunken Citadel adventure for 3.0 did take an incredible liking for the kobold Meepo.
Yeah. So if a character has a name, that actually does a lot towards making players identify with it.
I did take more of a liking to my my squad guys when they got rank enough that they automatically gained a random nickname.
Oh yeah, so that added to it. Yeah, the nickname
there's Drifter and Cyclops and Mad Dog and Nitro.
That's actually a good case for giving people that you know nicknames too, giving your friends nicknames, because it should establish.
When I started working at my current place, there's a lot to take in, and I gotta say names for my coworkers were a little bit lower on the list, and making sure I don't mess up and have no clue what to do for the actual work. And so everybody wound up with names. So just in my head, how do I recognize them? It was that's Special K, Ginger Lincoln, and Jesus.
Okay.
It's the one guy, I knew his name began with K, and he's the manager, so I should probably remember that. K, he's Special K. Yeah, he's the Mander, Special K. This guy, he had a nice, good beard, and he was fairly tall, and with, red hair. Ginger Lincoln. And over there, I mean, he had magnificent hair and a good full beard. He looks like a modern-day Jesus, so there you go. I got to learn their names properly and all that, but, at the beginning, everyone I meet at the workplace, every new person has a subtle mental name I use for them until I can remember the name proper.
Yeah. Well, that's and that might be a useful. Maybe not, because it prevents you from necessarily remembering their real name, but also.
Well, at least that way, if I'm relaying it later on, sort of thing, it's like, oh, so and so did this, and they say, oh, did you mean John or Joe? It's like, well, I know it can't be Joe, so that would have to be John, even though I'm remembering him as like Wild Man.
Okay. Yeah. I remember there was an episode of Community, that's the comedy show about a community college, one of the early ones where one of the characters, he's giving a speech and he's like, humans empathize with things with names. I'll give this pencil a name. This pencil's name is Fred. And then he breaks the pencil and everybody, it gives a shot of everybody, reaction shot of all the other characters in the room, and they all wince as he breaks Fred.
You broke Fred in half, you monster.
Yeah.
But it has to be just more than a name.
Maybe, yeah.
But there's not much else to them. I can randomly change the color and style of their armor a little bit. And I use that just to make sure I know which one's which on the battlefield as I'm looking over. It's like, assault troops are over there. They can rush up quick if need be. I can use the run and gun ability with them so they can position themselves wonderfully, and aliens come flushed out, and yeah, I can kill them pretty quickly, I believe. There's my medic over there. He's just a support group. My big heavy guy is coming up along the main way there, and my snipers are up and over there. Yeah, okay, it's a pretty good kill corridor I've got set up. Let's go.
Yeah, it's interesting that you color coordinate for this imaginary view that you have sort of from above as you're looking at
my isometric 3D view. Yeah,
isometric view. And I wonder if it would be the same for a squad. Like, what would they color? How would they color code each other so they could see each other?
Snipers are in gray/black. The heavy assault troop is in proper dark green for the military. My medic is in white, whereas my assault are in red. Mm-hmm. And I mean that's all there is to it. And I just figure them out a little easier that way. So that way, when I'm trying to say, okay, the alien went behind there. Who do I got close? Ooh, but he's not good for the close range combat. He's a sniper. Got to make sure I change the weapon over so he doesn't run around the corner and then tries to hit somebody at point blank range with a sniper rifle, which is not a good idea. In the game, they suffer close range penalties. So I got to make sure it's like, oh, okay, but I do want to make sure he's ready to snipe at any aliens. So I'll just position him where he is and make sure he's off of his little side pistol weapon and onto his proper sniper rifle. So it's those little things that give me quick cues, and so I'm not using them to like the characters anymore.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yes, I remember him. I made sure to color him distinct and unique. I mean, I as soon as I could, I switched it out so that you don't see their faces. I put helmets on them. Why? Because I'm kind of sick and tired of seeing people run around in a battlefield with their helmet off when that's what should be keeping them from getting a shot into the head.
Yeah.
So, that's my perspective at least.
And you also mentioned, too, another thing you do is you sort of cheat to keep your favorite, like your Mad Dog and your characters alive.
Now to keep them alive because I'm attached to them. It's like, ooh, Mad Dog, it took a really nasty shot and is down. I don't want to lose Mad Dog.
And it's funny because you're not cheating for the gameplay. You're not cheating necessarily to get ahead, although sometimes I guess it's to pass the level or whatever. But you're more cheating to tell the story, which is kind of...
The story of I mean, Nitro's real name is Long Song. He's one of my core men, from... he's a Chinese operative, and he is he's one of my assault troops. And I'm like... technically his story has nothing to do with the ultimate story. I mean, I don't need him to finish the game.
Yeah.
But I've come to associate him as part of my internal narrative structure as to what they've done. Like Operation, Sorrowful Hydra. I remember, he managed to, take out two, guys in, a single turn because of his, abilities and all this. And I'm just like, wow, I want to keep him around. But why do I like him so much? Why am I willing to go back to a previous save in order to prevent his death? There's not much to him. It's effectively randomly generated. So there's no reason for me to be that attached. I mean, I spend a lot more time with each one of my 3rd edition D&D characters. There's a lot more time spent on their skills. And I mean, the only skills you get in XCOM are when you level up. It's like you get a choice between A or B. And they're both pretty good abilities most of the time, so it doesn't really matter which way you go. It's still going to help you out in the long run. And yet, I'm very much attached to them. I don't want to lose this core group of 6 I have.
Mm-hmm.
What is it, that factor? I mean, because if I can figure out what's causing me to like them, I could write more sympathetic characters. I could use those traits in whatever characters I write, and then the people who read my stories would say, ooh, I will read anything this guy writes because I like his characters. I don't want to see this person die. If they die, I feel like I'm losing a friend. So what have you encountered this before, where you play a game and it's like, I shouldn't feel like I'm going to miss this unit because it's just another unit, but I don't want to lose them.
I don't know, because the game that comes to mind. Well, I mean, obviously I've played my share of XCOM, but also Warcraft. Just plain old Warcraft comes to mind. But of course, if you lose a hero in Warcraft, you just raise them from the dead.
That is slightly harder in XCOM, although I am hoping for an expansion pack possibility.
Yeah, and you don't. Yeah, I guess I don't care about my grunts or my footmen or my marines, in StarCraft. I don't care about them so much unless they have an actual name. So yeah, I think that's my theory on it. I think naming is it. Naming's the thing.
Well, could it be something like the powers you have with your heroes? Like you say, oh, I really love the way he completely dominates the battlefield with his AoE attacks. I
do have a lot of fun with the powers. Like the powers can be really enjoyable to use and lay waste to a battlefield, or explode, just cause havoc and chaos everywhere. But also, like, I've always enjoyed just low level running around and not having that many powers, as long as I can sort of feel like I'm accomplishing something.
You don't necessarily need somebody with like transmute blood to acid.
Yeah, exactly. Although as fun as that is, and I enjoy that, but yeah, I don't need it necessarily. So,
because I was just thinking, I mean, the heroes in World of Warcraft have some pretty sweet abilities.
Yeah.
And maybe one of the reasons I like my units is because of what they can do. My assault can run and gun, so I can run up right to an enemy, and then I can, at point blank range, boom, headshot. And I gotta say, it's about the only time I'm okay with having, a shotgun in the game. They have horrible distance sort of thing, and I don't mind killing at a distance, because if I miss, there's my guy standing right next to an alien who's very angry that they've been shot at.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, one of the reasons maybe I like my snipers so much is because I can get them up on a rooftop, and pew, there goes an alien, pew, there goes an alien, pew, there goes an alien. Headshots all around.
Yeah, well, yeah, the powers are definitely, if a character is useful to you, that should... So,
I was just wondering if it might be the rule of awesome as a factor. It's like, I don't want to lose this much awesome, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it has to be. I mean, obviously every character is a composite of all of its aspects, including like mechanics and flavor and everything else. So there's that. Yeah.
So I'm thinking back to some of the other games I've played. Civilization. I've almost never cared that much about my units, and there are times I have willingly sacrificed a number of units that I knew were never going to really accomplish much on the battlefield. Because, actually I get an ultimate net gain of gold at the end of the turn because I'm no longer, spending the money on upkeep for them. So it really does help me if I completely destroy these units in a worthless cause.
Well, do you ever get generals? You get generals from time to time.
Yeah, in which case I just take the generals and I just sit them down next to my capital and do absolutely nothing with them.
Yeah, and that's the thing about generals.
Too awesome to use.
Well, I've never figured out how to. I guess I don't have the skills in Civilization because I never figured out how to properly use a general, because every time I go into a battle it's like my general just I try to be strategic with him, but he ends lose one battle and that's the end of that named general. So it's fun. I never really got attached to those guys, except that sometimes you leave them in your capital or you you spend them to.
That's the thing. They make incredible good defensive units because you can get 3 or 4 other units put in there, and if you get some like high health units in there, then you could have like a guy that's almost guaranteed to withstand a nuclear blast, and you'll still be fortified.
Well, maybe I should revisit Civilization and try and as soon as I do earn, do a warlike campaign, be aggressive one time, and as soon as I earn a general, try and actually make proper use of them, because that actually might help me win a lot faster, I'm thinking.
Or at least, protect a little bit better. If you're in an advanced area where you're keeping the cities and you're slowly making your way across, having a general fortify into the city until they can go up to the next city means you're going to have a unit that's almost guaranteed to be indestructible, and even if they have better troops than you, they're going to need a lot more better troops because they just cannot kill you. Attrition them down.
Yeah, okay. I don't know if that's an issue of attachment, though. It's just...
No, and that's the thing, is I never liked them much, because once you put the unit in there, you can't get the unit back out, so you have to wait until you get the best units in the game with the most amount of health before they're, something you're going to want to put units into.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. And it's also only land-based units. You can't have any, naval generals sitting around there 5 battleships together. You can't do that. It's oh, I want more. I'm greedy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a game of almost ultimate, disposability. Unless you're playing the sort of game where you have your great, leader as a unit, and if they lose, you automatically lose everything. Every other unit is completely disposable at some point. It doesn't matter if you lose one; you can just make another. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, in XCOM, any one of the guys is disposable, and you can just hire another rookie and train him up and level him out with the various missions. Mm-hmm. And you just say, okay, well, that guy's dead. Grab his gear, and we'll put it on the new guy. Because, yeah, that's actually a thing that happens. And, well, you can put it as an option, if your guy dies, all his gear is lost as well. But by default, no, you just, scavenge the dead and, repurpose it for the living. And so it's just one of those issues where it's anyone is technically disposable. But it's got to be more than just a name. Because
might be, yeah.
Although I will say, I really did, feel a lot of loss when I lost my first car, Timmy. It was it hurt me.
Oh, this is in real life,
In real life, yes. And it really did get me, but I think that's because it's dude, I just lost a vehicle. It wouldn't matter if the car was unnamed. I lost my vehicle.
Yeah, that's pretty
that's a big ticket item. That would have been like having your house, get partially demolished. It's the house didn't even have a name, but it was my house. So the naming can't be just it. But it got me to thinking also. If I'm getting this attached to, effectively a disposable unit, semi-disposable, I suppose is the best term for it. They can be replaced, although you don't always want to every mission.
Right.
Why am I spending so much time creating each one of my characters in D&D? What's getting me, into doing all this? Why am I spending so much time with the skills, and making sure everything's right for the class, and the feats and all this? Why am I spending all that time when apparently all I need is a little awesome and a nice name?
Well, it beats me. I suppose sometimes things come up. It's oh, am I able to climb a wall? I don't know. I didn't flesh out that aspect of my character. So, does he have climb skill? Okay, yes. So there's that. Or would I know the names of the barons in this area, or would I know whether he's been taken over by a rival? Well, I don't know. I never checked my knowledge, or I never checked that part of my backstory. So
because I have really loved some characters in the past. My elven chronomancer. He was. I quite liked him, and I was always happy to have him help out the party. He didn't need to be in the limelight. I just liked what he did, and the occasional time he cast was it the true strike on himself and picks off a guy from a certain pace, with a crossbow or something. Yeah, he looks awesome there, right between the eyes. He got a +20 and he rolled a natural 20. Bam! But he doesn't always need to do the awesome. You know, and I mean, there's been some other characters I really liked, but why did I put so much effort when all I needed was a few stats and a name and a little bit of awesome? Because there's got to be something more to it than just that. You know, why am I, you know, and for that matter, why am I having so much fun playing a group of people? Why am I doing it as a full group of people in this game and just one character at a time in D&D? Can't we work it so, you know, you have an entire group of people in D&D?
Well, I mean, I think I can answer that, because in a good story, you need interaction between humans, or humanoids, as the case may be. But you need that sort of character-to-character interaction that, you know, or synergy, as it is in a, you know, as a squad works together and combines their skills. Same with a D&D campaign. Theoretically, there's 4 players for each. Like, each player has a character, so there's humans interacting, working together, and that's the stuff that stories are made of, is that those interactions.
Oh, but then again, we have I have the board game Hero Quest, and in that you've got your 4 characters: barbarian, wizard, elf, and dwarf, and they have a very minimal amount of stats. They've got like a health total. They got some you know, mental discipline, you know, and some movement and all that. That's not a lot.
Yeah.
And it's just basically 4 stats. They don't even have a name. And you can play it in, like, one person plays all 4 of them.
Well, we name them usually when we play it. Yeah.
But it's never going to come up. It's never going to be a thing.
Yeah.
You could name your barbarian Schmarbarian, and it doesn't impact any less on the thing. You don't suffer any, like, you know, things like, oh, you take, you know, like a -1 on your check because you are such horrifically named barbarian, Schmarbarian.
Right. Okay.
And yeah, okay, as it turns out, when we play, character stuff comes out. When we play with my brother Jason, he wound up, he kept referring to his wizard as an elf. And we kept having to remind him that, no, he's a human.
Yeah, so that turned into a story thing.
Yeah, where he's like some sort of elf poser wizard. You know, it's like, oh yeah, I want to be an elf.
And that's half a joke too.
Yeah.
Like,
it got funnier the more we used it, I'll say that. And, you know, but, I mean, it was a name and 4 stats, and for him, 9 spells.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even unique 9 spells. He has the option of getting those 9 spells again next time. It's nothing, you know, different from any other wizard out there.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say, like, all these flesh-out details, I wouldn't say those are necessary to connecting with your character. Like, in D&D, I'd say the reason you have such a huge character sheet with all these different things on it is just because there are so many things that can happen, and you want to be prepared in case that check comes up, in case you want to diplomatize. Well, what is my diplomacy score, or would I know this person, or would I know that language?
Whereas in XCOM, you never need to worry about whether or not your squaddies can communicate, because everyone apparently speaks English. And if they need to climb up a drain pipe, they can actually do so, no need to check.
Yeah.
Everyone automatically succeeds. It costs so many movement points to go. Which I guess is kind of awesome, because, I mean, you're supposed to be an elite, tough, you know, military person. Yeah, maybe you should be expected to climb up the side of a building if need be. Not anywhere on the side of a building, but somewhere where there's, like, a ladder or a decent drain pipe.
Well, and also, like, your XCOM units are all very similar to each other. They have similar skill sets because they're all trained by the same military. They all go through basic training. So, in basic training, you know, the trope of that is that you climb the rope up that wall, and you know, climb over the wall and jump over logs and under
the wire fence, or through the mud,
jump through tires, or is that football? Okay, I'm getting
maybe both. I mean, you know, you got to start out somewhere. It can't always be crawling through the mud.
But with a game like D&D, and I don't know why Dungeon Quest, was that Dungeon Quest? Yeah, it might be a different thing.
Hero Quest.
Okay. With a game like D&D, you can have characters like, oh, well, this is the wizard, and he's never left his wizard sanctum. He's frail, and he's only, like, read books and stuff. So you can't necessarily count on the fact that he's going to be able to climb a wall or climb a rope or walk over a ledge or something like that.
I do find it a little weird, though, that the wizard isn't able to wear a lot of the armors in Hero Quest that the others can, given that it comes from the effectively the Warhammer universe, which is known for full-plate wizards. Like, they will wear like full-plate outfits, and they'll be just as badass as anyone out there.
Well, I would chalk that up to them deciding on game balance. I would say, oh, well, they decided that they wanted each character to be distinctive, so the special thing about all the other characters, as well as the wizard, is that they happen to be able to wear armor. Sort of.
It does show in the things that the wizard can buy versus can't buy, because almost everything says cannot be used by the wizard, except for like a quarterstaff, a toolkit, and a dagger, and that's about it. Once the wizard gets that, no need for money.
Yeah. Well, the other thing about the wizard, too, is that he has a lot of stuff to manage already because he has all his spells, right?
Yeah.
So he has to manage all that sort of bookkeeping, and the other characters at first don't have any bookkeeping, and so their bookkeeping might become the armor and the weapons and stuff.
To a certain degree, but there comes a certain point where it's like the wizard doesn't have any long-term defensive spells.
Yeah, well, that's what his party friends are for.
And that's, that wound up biting my brother Jason in the rump a few times when the monsters just decided, no, there's no attacks of opportunity. I just walk right past these guys and start smacking on this puny, frail wizard.
Well, okay, but I mean, that depends on your dungeon master, because I don't know if the monsters would be either smart enough to recognize a wizard, not necessarily, because what's the wizard? Is he, like, literally, like, shooting blasts of fire at them? Because if not, then he's just,
according to the image,
rat.
he looks very ill-defended, and he's wearing a shirt with a star and moons all over it.
Well, yeah, but so is the rat, and so is the little, like, the spiders in the dungeon, that they don't pay any attention to the spiders. I mean, they might, as they're passing, they might smash a spider, like, with a...
To show how evil they are, like the mummy picks one up and shrivels it with his death, grasp until it's nothing but ashes in it.
But I would think if they have actions to spend and, real work to get done, they would probably, like, thinking of in a monster's mentality, he's going to go after the biggest target, which is typically going to be the fighter, unless the fighter's hiding behind a corner. And
I do say it must be a fairly easy precedent to try and hit that barbarian, given the fact that he's drawn initially with just a loincloth.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't know
very
what that guy's
dexterous.
got underneath
He can dodge.
his shirt. He's skinny and all that. He probably don't have much for muscles. But this guy's wearing just a little animal hide to keep him PG-13. I think I might want to try my shot with Naked Man here.
Yeah, I mean, the barbarian probably looks threatening because he has a huge sword.
Well, that's the thing, is he initially starts off with effectively the same sword as everyone else.
Okay.
So he's not that much of a threat. He's just a crazy naked man.
Crazy naked guy. Yeah, no, if I was the monsters, like, I'd say the
Barbarian
way
or a hobo?
The DM should run them is he should run the monsters with that sort of mentality, is that this armored guy, the fighter, looks like the biggest threat, and
that is what I tried to do with some of the lesser intellects. Whichever one was hitting them is a valid target, sort of thing.
But I suppose if a mummy is like, in a past life the mummy was a wizard himself, and he knows what wizards are like, then we're like, okay, if I take out the wizard, that'll actually be better for me in the long run. So
yeah, and that's why I was thinking more tactically minded when it came to stuff like the mummy or the Chaos Knights. But that's never actually called for. You could effectively cross off Hero Quest on the side of the board and call it How Long Till I Kill the Wizard. Just have every monster preferentially just move into place to kill the wizard whenever possible.
Yeah, okay.
Which is kind of a dick move, but then again, I mean, I'm Zargon, the evil sorcerer, when I'm playing the game, because I'm the game master, and apparently that's what a Zargon is.
Well, I don't know. I mean, as Zargon, your goal might be to kill as many players as possible, or as player characters as possible.
The fact that there was a 50% mortality last time we played was pure circumstantial.
Well, I don't know about that, because maybe if your ultimate goal is to play the most strategically effective to actually kill, I don't know, not necessarily all of them, but try to win, maybe you should focus on the barbarian first and get that threat out of the way.
And once the heavy hitter's out of the way, everyone else is going to fall.
Yeah, because, I mean, the wizard has a few, he has some spells, but they're not he's not a
they're not
laser cannon.
Guaranteed death spell 1 through 7.
And that's the thing. The other thing about that game is the characters are fairly balanced against each other. There's not a wild disparity, so the wizard's power is about the same level as the barbarian. It's just he has less defense, and so.
Yeah, his mind stat doesn't actually come into play for the most part, though, until the later adventures. So.
Unless you have a wizard or a magic using
spell casting enemy.
That guy.
But there's only technically 4 stats: your physical health, your mental stat, how well you resist spells.
Yeah.
What you roll to attack, what you roll to defend. That's it.
Yeah, well, and that's what I've been saying.
Yeah.
That it doesn't take a lot to actually identify with a character, because apparently humans naturally latch on to other humans.
Might it be just a combination then of like name to give a sense of persona?
I'd say name.
The ability to be awesome.
Yeah,
remember that, and then
useful to your to yourself and to your party, getting things done. Yeah.
And then maybe some degree of experience, like okay, you guys went through the one adventure in Hero Quest and you lost the elf and the dwarf, I believe it was, and that's kind of 50% mortality rate. And I gotta say, maybe I don't have it in me to be a killer DM, because I don't go into a game thinking like, okay, I'm gonna see how many of these guys I can kill this time around. It's just, let's see how well they go through here.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a huge loss to have that 50% mortality rate, but what if it had been, after, there's 14 quests, I believe, in the initial box set.
Okay.
And what if it had been after, 10 quests, and you finally lose the elf? It's like, oh.
Yeah, I think that would make a difference, yeah.
So then experience might just be it. It doesn't necessarily need to be how, the time, the stats, much else. It could just be like, oh, but I played that one for so long.
Yeah, and I think that's just an extension of humans, because we form an attachment, but also if we get repeated encounters with a character, we also form an attachment. And you see that with big bad evil guys too in games, sort of almost the opposite ways. They kind of get used to it. It's like, oh, that's that guy again that we hate so much, and so.
And it's like, oh yeah, hey Bob the evil guy. Yeah, hey, how you doing again?
Well, yeah, Bob the evil, Sideshow Bob. Yeah, he's evil.
Yeah, but he was voiced by Kelsey Grammer. I mean, how can you not love him? He's like Frasier, but pickled in arsenic and brine. I mean, how can you just not love that character? He could have had his own, spin-off series on that. Kelsey Grammer could have had 2 spin-off series, one for Sideshow Bob and one for Dr. Frasier Crane.
Yeah, and what if Sideshow Bob met Frasier Crane?
I'm still hoping that is a potential for a future episode. I'm not going to lie. Just have him phone in. I need help with some advice here.
I have a feeling that Frasier appeared on The Simpsons, as the character Frasier, but that might... Didn't he?
There was a lot of cameos. He may have made a visual cameo. I'm not sure if it was a spoken cameo, though.
Maybe not, yeah. Well, I should mention we've gone a little bit over time, so maybe we should finish with our final thoughts.
So, final thought for the group stuff, or the basic characters. Just repeated experience. So in that case, if you want to get your people invested in their characters, maybe the first thing you do for the first 3 levels is just short, simple, easy encounters in D&D. That way it doesn't really matter, whether or not they were that invested beforehand, but because they survived and they overcame and they did awesome stuff, that gets them involved in the character, and then you build the bigger adventure storylines?
I would say that, but, well, in fact, I would say you probably don't even need to worry about it, because I think players, just the way the game is set up, especially D&D, the fact that you create a character and you decide where they're from and what their name is, what their eye color is, that's enough.
That's the experience then. The
Maybe,
creation is the experience.
I wouldn't say that's all of it, but yeah, that's a major part of it too. Well, we talked about all the different aspects.
In that case, I may have to play a game of zombies with you sometime off the record, and then we will name our little characters and see if we want them to survive even more than normal.
Okay, we can
this little blue guy isn't just a little blue guy. His name is Cobalt Blue. And, he's got a backstory and all that, and I'll come up with a little description of what he's like and all that, and we'll do that for a few of them and see if we want to keep them alive more so than normal. Yeah,
and as far as D&D, as sort of advice for Dungeon Masters, I would say you don't necessarily, you might have to worry about players not being attached to their characters, but you probably don't, because they're probably going to get attached anyways. the thing that you have to watch out for is that they'll get too attached to their characters, and so if you hurt them or if you take things away, that
they don't show up anymore. So I don't even want to play
well,
anymore.
I wouldn't say not showing up, but you have to keep in mind that what keeps the game. I wouldn't say it's fun necessarily, but just keep in mind that
the fun experience.
Just design encounters and adventures with the knowledge that your players are attached to their characters. They will be. It's gonna happen, and so just be ready for it. There can be tears when when a character dies. There can be tears, but I'm of the opinion that let those tears happen and move on. Because
proverbial tears. Sometimes it'll just be a little bit of moping. Like, I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is, if the player really wants the character, like really loved that character enough, there are ways in D&D to bring the character back.
Well, I suppose there are ways in XCOM too. That's what we call save scum.
Yeah,
just go back to the previous save.
Okay, yeah.
I think an interesting thought then. The creation experience for the D&D, because it's much more involved, acts as going through those basic adventures. Cause
that's true, yeah. It's your first encounter with your character.
Yeah, it makes you think more about them and come up with the backstory, and maybe in your own head they've gone through a few little things before.
But it's funny, to draw this out even further, but it's when you go through that whole creation process with your character, it's like, oh, I've made a great character, I'm so happy with it. But then it's a whole nother level. As soon as the character hits the table, and it's like maybe you start in the tavern, it's role-playing in the tavern, that is a whole nother level of, wow, this character really means something, because now this character is actually reacting to sort of external
They're
stuff.
Finally
like
alive.
The other characters
really
or NPCs in the tavern, yeah. So that, the character becomes that much more real at that point.
You can't kill my rogue. He may or may not have an illegitimate daughter with one of the barkeep's, employees.
Yeah.
Don't let this happen. It's on your head.
Yeah, and we haven't even talked about the whole, love-hate relationship. Like, you know how you start with a character that's kind of a jerk, and you learn to love them? Like, that's a whole trope. Like, they start off prickly and, nasty, and then, because for some reason, that just makes people fall in love with characters.
He's a bit of an ass, but you know what? You get him down in a dungeon.
He's got your back.
He's going to be the ass that's, fighting with you side by side, and you want him to be an ass against the enemies.
Yeah, so that's its own probably another topic.
He may occasionally steal your wallet sort of thing when you're up in town, but you know what? When you're down in those corridors, he's got 2 daggers for the back of any ogre you find.
And he's literally the anthropomorphic mule from the savage species.
You know what? I'd be okay with that, because that helps give him some added character.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's good to let them be, like that sort of thing, and not just try and change their character profile. Because, think about, go back to Winnie the Pooh. No one tried to get Eeyore to be happy. Eeyore was just kind of sad, but he always went on their adventures, too.
Didn't they? Maybe at some point
they spent some time
try and cheer up, but
cheer him up, but it
didn't work.
It's not like they said, "Oh, come on, get off it, just cheer up, get over this bad self." No. They went on his adventures. It's like, well, you know what? He's kind of sad and a little depressing, but that's Eeyore. We'll take him with us and have an adventure.
Yeah.
And so, you don't necessarily need everybody to have the same sort of gung-ho, proactive, happy personality. You can have a jerk or a sad person and still have just as good an adventure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Just a little extra food for thought, I suppose, on that.
This podcast has gone a little... Okay, anyways.
All right, so yes.
I should... Or any? Is that it?
Well, how can they reach us if they want to get a hold of us?
Okay, well, we'll do the whole email thing. Yes, we have an email address, thesimulationist@gmail.com. If you have, topic suggestions, or if you have thoughts that we missed or we didn't cover, or if we got something wrong, or if you just want to yell at us.
If you know that key thing that makes a simple, set of stats become a true character that you're willing to reload a save for, or bring them back from the dead for, let us know.
Yeah, we want to know that stuff. So I always ask for people, I always ask for the negative feedback too on these things, because I want people to know that I'm interested in that too. But also, if you love the show, if you really enjoy what, just hanging out with us, talking and chatting and just hearing what we have to say, please, we'd like to hear that too, because we want to hear the positive stuff too, because that'll make us feel good, and that'll, writing something positive to your friends is positive for your own
Yeah,
soul.
we need to know where to grow, which way to go.
So we'll take positive and negative, and anything in between. And so if you want to rate us, we're on iTunes. Look for The Simulationist. You probably already found us on iTunes. That's where I think where most people get us. But just type us into the search
The dark
bar.
corners of YouTube.
We are on YouTube also. It's just these podcasts up on YouTube, but you can type in comments there too.
Well, that's actually an interesting thing that just occurred to me.
Oh.
It's for the podcast and all that is for the people out there. We're just two voices. I mean, they don't get a chance to see much for our face, and if they're looking at us on YouTube, it's the Simulationist, a little logo that we have.
Yeah, it's just a little logo, yeah.
And yet they're coming back to listen to us week after week. So for some reason, just these two voices, you and I, people have formed some sort of a connection.
Yeah, plus names. I mean, I think if they search for me, they'll probably find my photo, because I have a profile photo on Twitter and Facebook and everything. So.
Well, geez, now I got to check that up, see if they can find me. Maybe they're looking at the wrong Ryan. Oh no. But no, I mean, well, that's the thing, is the experience we've had, 79 before this one, helps lead to the whole connectiveness.
We hope that you've been sort of getting attached in your own way to us, and we'll continue to make these podcast iterations.
Even if it's just a background white noise, we'll take it.
But also, another great way to grow as a person, to feel good, is to share it with your friends, in case you have friends who haven't heard of us. And just let them know that it's a super cool podcast that they should be listening to, and just more cool people.
Because, dude, these guys make you think, man. You got to pay attention, and they come up with the weird ideas.
Yeah,
they go on some fun tangents. Whoa.
I like to think that we're sort of on the smarter side of no, that's maybe too conceited of me to say, but oh well.
We're on the inventive side. We take the idea and we play around with it until we come up with something new that everyone can wind up having fun with.
I guess, if nothing else, we're creative.
I'll take it.
That's enough I think. So, with that.
Well, for this week, we'll self-promote again next week.
Yeah, I've been Josh Levin.
I've been Ryan Kirkby.
Send money.